Why should American students care? When we've told them they don't need to pick any direction in their lives until they get to college potentially. That's very different from their global counterparts in Nigeria and India, Singapore, all around the world, where people have to have a direction while they're still in high school. That helps. It helps. Why should American students care? When we've told them that, oh, you can learn this concept in algebra and that concept, but you don't need to do calculus because somehow it's just you're learning these concepts and these tools, but you're never going to use them in the field of study that unites all that knowledge together. In countries like Nigeria, over 60 to 70% of students do calculus concepts. If they attend a good high school, they're all doing differentiation and integration before they graduate high school. The whole school. And then students have the option of taking advanced math, which is connected to their vision for life. Why should American students care? When we've allowed them to move on to the next grade level, when they haven't mastered the material in the current grade level, and if we were to tell them to repeat the grade level they're in, we are concerned that their feelings will be affected, so we move them on to the next grade level, even though they got a D in math. Why should American students care? When we give them 3 months off in the summer, when some of them are very bad at math already, and you're going to take 3 months off from a subject that requires objective, analytical reasoning, you take 3 whole months from it when you were already struggling with it. Why should American students care? The reason why I wrote this short write-up was because I saw the results of the PISA, and there's a friend of mine sent me the results of this test that they give to many countries, and American students were not doing as well on this test. And it got me thinking, why should they care though? Because in Singapore, for example, where they do very well on this test, the consequence of failing is very high. Singapore is a small, country compared to America. And in Singapore, that there's limited opportunities and so on and so forth. So you don't want to fail, right? And there's, of course, a cultural dimension. One of my main supporters in education is from Singapore, and we're planning to do more projects in Singapore. So I'm very familiar with Singapore's education system. I use Singapore math for my elementary school math students because Singapore does very well. There are some areas that Singapore can even go to the next level where, which involves the teaching of the history and philosophy of science and math to Singaporean students. And those online courses will be coming out in 2025, God willing. But the point is, Singaporean students have a very different outlook on life compared to American students. Nigerian students have a very different outlook on life compared to American students. American students, we are putting them at a disadvantage by not giving them a vision for life. If we want to see American students flourish, we need to rethink the point of what we're trying to do. Are we serious about education, or are we just playing games and keeping them keeping them for 9 months engaged in busy work? If we really want to see American students flourish, we need to go back to the reality that sometimes sacrifice is necessary for flourishing. We need to teach American students that not everything is going to be fun. Some things are going to be hard, but it's worth doing. Nigerians know this. Indians know this, Singaporeans know this, in their school systems, they don't care much about the people's feelings, quote unquote, in a sense. We have people that are told to repeat the whole 7th grade because they failed their math class. They repeat the whole 7th grade. Now, do I agree with that whole piece? No. I think that you should probably repeat the math portion, but you shouldn't have to do all the other subjects. However, there's a consequence if you fail, and we know it in Nigeria. Is there a consequence if you fail in America? In your K-12 years? Or do we have people who are going to 6th grade who barely understood anything in 5th grade? Do we have people who are going into 9th grade who barely did well in 8th grade? You don't see that in many countries of the world. So why should American students care? I must be honest and say that I'm even surprised that they're doing okay in some of the things. Now, they can do much better. I know that. But my point is we've removed the incentives in many cases. We've removed the guardrails that will inspire them to care more. And then we're wondering why they're not doing well. Well, we have to, number one, establish the reality that these children can have a direction for life while they're still in high school. They can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I want to become a medical doctor, that I want to become an engineer, and that's okay. And if they change later in life, that's okay. Nobody is going to look at you someday and say, look at you, you took out 1, 2, and 3, and now you've pivoted. Too bad you took out 1, 2, and 3. Nobody's going to say that. As a matter of fact, if you take out 1, 2, and 3, you can do anything with your life. There is nothing in the world you cannot do if you've taken out 1, 2, and 3. You could become an aerospace engineer. You could become an aeronautical engineer. You could become a rocket scientist. You could choose to go to medical school and study neuroscience, become a neurosurgeon. There is no limits. Now, granted, you need to study anatomy, physiology, and other things. How we learn subjects like biology is different from how we learn mathematics. We'll talk about that in another video. The American education landscape and the cultural context children find themselves in breeds a lot of apathy. Apathy is in the air. And this is coupled with the reality that there's a lot of people leaving the teaching profession, and you wonder why some kids are misbehaving in school. Think about it. They don't see a relevance sometimes to what they're learning, so they're misbehaving. This misbehavior we see in schools does not happen at the same level compared to their counterparts around the world. I think there's some non-academic reasons for this. So we can't just look at academic data to solve this problem. We need to look at the reality of what are these children thinking about and dealing with. And that's one of the things I enjoyed doing when I had my students come to the classroom during their lunch period to eat, and I was listening to their conversations. A lot of these students want to be reminded that their lives matter, that their lives have a purpose and meaning. And it does, because they've been created in the image of God. So where do we go from here? America needs a revival and a renewal, which impacts every aspect of the students' lives, not just their grades. There are non-academic factors that can affect children flourishing. The family structure, excessive smartphone use, mental health. We need to address every one of these issues if we want to see American students flourish. Should American students care? Yes, but let's give them a reason to care. This is one of the reasons why my company exists, the Learning Institute for Excellence. We want to disrupt education worldwide and give every child the opportunity to flourish and be who they were created to be. We're using math and science as our starting point, but eventually we're going to have the humanities and English and so on. There are some great companies out there doing this in English already, in classical schools, Veritas Press, Memoria Press, but we want to do it from a perspective of math and science, showing students the human nature of the scientists behind the concepts they learn in school and inspiring them to come up with the concepts that would change the world. Because Einstein was just a person. Newton was just a person. Your students are people who can also change the course of history. American students need to care more, but the educators need to change the mindset of simply promoting them and allowing them to move forward when they haven't mastered the fundamentals. The educators need to give them guidance towards choosing different professions and let them job shadow. Let them do anything that will give them some direction in life. And I think we'll see the misbehavior in classrooms drop because students will come to school knowing, I know I want to become an engineer and I need this math course to learn the math to become an engineer. And you can always pivot. That is okay. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe. I'm not mad at anybody. I just want to see more children flourish. Have a blessed day. And this is Amos, the Math Guy.